Hi everyone and welcome to episode 50 of the ITSM crowd. My name's Claire Agata and I'm going to be the facilitator for today's session. This is our last ITSM crowd for 2018, which is momentous on its own, and we've picked a really good topic, a really interesting topic to talk about for our final episode, which is the results of the global SIAM survey which have just been published. So we've got two real SIAM experts joining us today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Jean-Marie, if you could introduce yourself first, please.
Yeah, my name is Jean-Marie van Kutsum, and I actually work for Deloitte Global Technology Services, which is a global IT organization within the overall global Deloitte world. I'm mainly responsible for service management and since last week actually for service catalogs and services.
Congratulations. Good extra bit to have. So Jean-Marie was one of the reviewers in the white paper, so he added some commentary to it. And Martijn as well, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yes, absolutely. Martijn Adams. I'm the general manager for the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, Africa, for me. For me is an enterprise service management solution with a clear focus on the collaboration between different providers to provide the best possible service.
And could I just ask one of you to give me a quick definition of SIAM for anybody who's not familiar with the topic?
I think Martijn is actually the one who has the best definition.
I'm sure you know very well also, but yeah, service integration and management, right? That's where it stands for, SIAM. And it's really an approach to how to manage multiple suppliers of services, how to integrate them to provide the best value for the business that is making use of all these different providers.
Cool, thank you very much. So in today's world, when most organisations outsource some or all of their services, not just IT services, but quite often IT services are very complex, SIAM gives us a way to manage that and make sure that suppliers collaborate together. So SIAM's been around for quite a few years now, but this is the first time that anybody's ever taken a snapshot of the kind of the global state of SIAM. So a company called Scopism, which I'm involved with, created the white paper, which is this thing here, and it was very kindly sponsored by For.Me, and the electronic copies of this are available as a download on the For.Me website. So if you want to get yourself a copy of this after the hangout, by all means do so, and we'll publish a link in the blog that we put live after this episode. Martijn, just to ask you why For.Me felt it was important to sponsor the white paper.
Yes, we truly believe that we are on our way to have more and more services outsourced to different providers, not anymore to one provider, but really to multiple providers. And in some organizations, the amount of providers really adds up, and it's 15 or more already. And this is something that we see that the ITSM business actually is still lagging a little bit, because most of the tools were built to support that concept of one IT department providing service to the organization, and where we really focus on that, how it is nowadays, where there's multiple providers doing that. And I think it's very important that we all get a good understanding how the world thinks about this. Where are we right now? What are people doing? What have we seen that does work? What doesn't work? And that's what the survey helps us with, because it gives some clear insight. And okay, how are people looking at doing this collaboration piece? How do they feel about what they did so far in SIAM? What can they help you with in explaining what did work and what didn't work? And because of that, I think the research has a lot of value. That's why we were so happy to be involved in it and to sponsor it.
Perfect, thank you. So what we're going to do tonight in this hangout, or today or this morning, depending on where you are in the world, is we are just going to pick up a few of the key findings from the white paper and chat about those based on Jean-Marie and Martine's experience with the clients that they work with and the organisations that they see. If you've got any questions that you would like to put to our panel, you can put them on Twitter using the hashtag ITSMcrowd, and we will be keeping an eye on that as we talk. So if you've got any burning questions that you want to ask, then by all means do that, and we will pick them up in the next 25 minutes. So one of the first, I guess, results that really struck me was the fact that this was a global survey, so respondents from countries, all around the world. But the results that came back sort of showed very clearly that SIAM is still mainly being adopted in Europe and Australia, and we're not seeing much SIAM adoption in the USA, in Canada, in Latin America at the moment. So the first question I want to ask you both is, was that a surprise to you? And do you think SIAM will eventually spread and become more global?
Well, I honestly think it will spread because being part of a global organization, we can clearly see that service management and ITSM, or service management in general, is clearly driven from Europe at the moment. There's a big uptake in Europe for many years, since a long time. And when I talk to my colleagues in the US and I talk to them about SIAM, or for example, Verizon, then they listen, and then they actually start picking it up. They get curious, they go to websites, they check it, and then suddenly it slowly starts, and then everybody starts talking about it. It happened to me with Verizon that I did the certification and I posted it, and everybody saw it, and they said, "Hey, what is this?" And then they were curious and they started asking questions. As of now, we have already multiple people certified, even in the US, so they really pick it up. Maybe there's not a lot of publicity, or maybe it's terminology that they're not used to. Maybe they're just more stuck to the real ITSM world instead of going broader than just ITSM. I think it will slowly pick up, but maybe they're looking at us to take the initiative and to push it forward.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's maybe the case that they are doing SIAM but not calling it SIAM? Because presumably, even in the USA and North and South America markets, they are outsourcing, so they must be having the same issues that many of the European organisations report about supplier management and collaboration and value realisation.
I definitely agree there that it is a lot about terminology, because I think if you need to ask the question, do you outsource? Do you have multiple providers? Do you see issues in how you can best make them work together? Then the answers will all be yes. And then if you finally ask them, so have you heard about SIAM? Then the answer is most likely no. So I think there's a lot of value created in this SIAM community that is not yet out there because people don't know where to find it, I guess. So there's some work that we can do in that area. And maybe it's the English started with ITIL, but it was the same story. It was not that others didn't do it. It was just that they hadn't taken the time to write it out and make some sense out of it. So I guess maybe we're in the same stage with SIAM.
Yeah, and actually, Martijn, I think 5 years ago, when I actually started working with SIAM, I had no clue that it was called SIAM. I think you were the first one actually telling me, "Hey, this is SIAM, what you're doing." I think 5 years ago, nobody was aware of this. We were using the tools, we were integrating, we were looking at what suppliers and outsourcers were doing, but we had no clue that it was called SIAM. So I was really happy to see that there was a name, there was something existing, and we were actually 5 years already without even knowing. It's probably the same in the rest of the world also.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I sometimes wonder about is whether the name SIAM actually helps or hinders SIAM, because certainly when you start talking about applying SIAM outside of the IT arena, people do seem to find that the name quite off-putting, and it sounds really complicated. What is it? When it is just another way of making sure we get value from our suppliers. So I think explaining carefully what service integration and management can actually deliver, that's an important part of this education piece.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and if you just say service integration, then people think it's a technical trick that you are trying to pull off. But the management piece is very important in the whole concept. Of course, it's much more about the people and process bit also than just the technology. So yes, sometimes I'm thinking it's better to call it provider collaboration, service delivery change, and stuff like that, just to get people's attention. And then you can explain them a little bit more about, okay, this is actually called SIAM, and this is what it is. Because everyone is interested. It's just that they have to grab what it is.
Yeah, because one of the other findings in the white paper was that 2/3 of SIAM models only include IT services. So SIAM kind of developed simultaneously within quite a lot of areas, but the UK government was one of the organisations that really drove SIAM forward, and they very much applied it to IT services, and it was about making sure that we didn't see quite as many of these colossal failed government IT projects in the news as perhaps we're used to. But for me, I see SIAM as applying so much more broadly than that, particularly as digital transformation kind of blurs the lines between what we think of as a business service and an IT service. And I just wondered if either of you are seeing any examples of SIAM being used outside of the IT arena.
Plenty, actually. I think we've been doing SIAM now for about 5 years, and we were starting with IT, I would say, but quickly facilities management. I mean, they manage a lot of suppliers, probably more than IT in general, because all the building management is usually outsourced.
Yep.
You don't manage your own building and infrastructure anymore. They were already doing this because that's usually outsourced. Every building that we have even has different outsources, because it's not one company doing maintaining all the buildings. So if you have 10 buildings, it might be 10 suppliers already. And even in one building, you have multiple suppliers, one for the elevators, one for the electricity, one for something else. And they were actually doing this, and we slowly started using the system under the service management, or the ITSM system, to do exactly the same thing that we were doing with our suppliers for data centers and networking. Very slowly, and even human resources is picking up on this now. And the talent people, they also outsource the payroll system, for example. More and more, you see these business process outsourcing happening. So a lot of processes are being outsourced, and that's where we actually always try to do a kind of a SIAM integration. Can be very small, just by even email sending, up to real integrations, full integrations, bi-directional. But yeah, really, absolutely. Everybody's outsourcing nowadays.
Yep.
So I see this happening more and more in outside of IT. Yep.
I think we have a nice example internally also. We work with the Hub agency, which is a marketing office in the UK. And we actually work with them fully integrated. We obviously use For Me, but they use For Me also. So yeah, we can seamlessly collaborate, and whatever we need from them is basically integrated in our own processes. So there is this function in between, basically, that decides what should be done internal, where the marketing agency is involved and where not. All the approvals and everything is all handled as basically part of our own business process. So we as users of this process don't even notice that it's actually going external, because it's so embedded in the process itself. And this is a marketing company, no IT whatsoever.
That's a really good example. I mean, they're both really good examples. And I do think that the scope for SIAM could be so much broader. And I know the intention is that the white paper will be repeated next year, and it's going to be interesting to see if that response changes, because 2/3 for IT services only still seems, you know, like SIAM could be doing so much more.
And the question is, I guess, where does it start from? Because I think that's what we've seen with ESM also, right? Enterprise
Yes.
Service Management. I think IT has been shouting about that for 15 years already. Look, guys, you should be using our tool also. Now, partly, I guess it was because the tools were rather poorly designed. So that's maybe why others didn't want to use it. But nowadays, the tools are pretty good, right? They look nice, so people want to use them. But for a long time, it was still IT pushing for it rather than others asking for it.
Yes.
And I see that slowly changing with enterprise service management. So I guess SIAM will go in the same direction, and others at some point of time will start asking for it also.
Yeah, and I think hearing the examples like you've just shared helps organisations to see where SIAM might apply for them. You know, facilities management is such a good example, and you know, one of the authors who worked on the SIAM body of knowledge shared an example about a local government department that used it to manage all of the suppliers who were involved in things like cutting grass, tidying up hedges, repairing fences. So yeah, I think that the scope's enormous because the practices apply across all of these areas.
And I guess we as IT people should actually be humble and just go out and listen to these people, because facility guys have been outsourcing everything for I don't know how many years already. I bet that they have way more experience in it than we have. So we can probably learn a lot more from them than they can learn from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's something that I've been talking about for a lot of this year is crashing down this wall between IT and the business, and you know, just talking to each other, because we all work for the same organization. So we should be sharing how we work.
Digitalization should help with that, I think, because more and more IT bits that were currently done by the IT department, I think, are already done by the other businesses themselves already, and that will just grow in the future. IT is so much part of everything nowadays, and the younger generations are so used to all kind of IT stuff that we have to. It's shifting anyways.
Yeah, completely agree. So something else that came out in the white paper was asking organisations about the strategic drivers for adopting SIAM. So kind of the results that they hope to achieve and the value that they expected to see. And by far the most common response was organisations were adopting SIAM because they wanted to have more control and better performance from their suppliers. Is that a reasonable thing to expect? Is that a reasonable expectation for adopting SIAM?
I think you have a lot of experience with that, Jean-Marie.
Yeah, but we actually started with this because we really wanted to control. Let's start with control. We really wanted to control our suppliers. We were actually a bit fed up of going through these monthly SLA meetings with your suppliers, and they always show that everything is perfect and everything is green and all the SLAs are met. But what we heard from our customers is that the application was slow, response times, there was downtime, there was lots of things happening. So the users were not happy. So that's why we actually started with SIAM and integrating our suppliers, measuring what was actually happening, and then we could actually show the suppliers that how our customers were experiencing their service, and that helped a lot. But I think next to having more control over your suppliers and making sure that they perform as agreed in the contract, because that's what you want to do. We also want to get better performance. I think that's a next step. It's all about user experience, and users expect a lot, and users they don't want to see the difference anymore between whatever kind of service that gets delivered to them. You just mentioned it, IT and the rest of the business, it's all being integrated. For end users, there's almost no more. They don't know if it's an IT service or human resources service or a facility service. it's all very much the same to them, and then it needs simply to be there 24/7 almost. And that's why we are using SIAM also to make sure that our suppliers really meet the agreements that we have with them. We do spend quite a lot of money on suppliers, then we better make sure that they are delivering the services that we expect them to deliver. What we are not doing is we're not using SIAM actually to kind of punish the suppliers. It's still a partnership, and you still have to work together. That's really important, and you have to understand each other, and you have to make sure that they understand our business. Yeah, your suppliers need to understand your business, and we actually use SIAM to educate our suppliers more and more, teach them about what our business users actually demand from us, from the organization, and how the supplier can actually contribute to these requirements. And at the same time, of course, it's nice when you have meetings with them, the SLA meetings, that you already know what's happening up front. And so we avoid those discussions about everything is up and running, all the CPU is fine, all the is fine, but still the users are complaining about it. And that's something that some of our suppliers really start understanding and are actually very interested in getting that feedback, because they have no clue. I mean, they offer technical services usually. We trust business services, and we offer a business service to our customers. So the supplier really wants to be part of the full end-to-end chain. And I think for me, that's really important. Designing the end-to-end and measuring every step in the end-to-end service delivery.
Yeah, and I know the responses in the white paper were kind of, there were sort of free text options, but the responses were limited to the options that were there. But the popularity of control as a response, I think, did surprise me a little bit, because I do think within SIAM that there is this, yes, you want to see better performance from your suppliers, but you're not doing that by controlling every single thing that they do. Like you said, you're educating them about where they fit within the bigger picture. And then to a certain extent, you are allowing them to get on and do the jobs. I think any organization that goes into this with a real command and control mindset will find that they're not getting the results that they want, because they're not giving the suppliers that freedom to sometimes fail or to work together.
Yeah.
I think SIAM should be very much about creating partnerships with all these providers, because if it's just check and control, then I'm not sure if you'll get the best value at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it depends a bit on what kind of relationship or what kind of supplier it is. If it's just a basic supplier that is providing you telephone numbers or whatever, or subscriptions, telephone subscriptions, that's not a real partnership. I mean, they do not really have to understand. If they know that they just have to deliver something, it's clearly defined, and you do SIAM to integrate with them and then make sure that they're part of your process, that's fine. But if you're talking about more the added value services that really have an impact on your business services, then you need a partnership, of course. But if it's just to make sure that something gets delivered and it's something very well described, then you don't. Then it's more controlling everything, making sure that that step in your process is working.
Yeah, I agree. And another area, and as a trainer, I found this particularly interesting, because the SIAM Foundation is one of our more popular courses. But there was a question that asked about the skills and the capabilities that were important for people who were working within a SIAM environment. And looking at the results in the white paper, the responses here were really kind of fragmented, no clear trend. So people were talking about service management skills, DevOps, business relationship management, procurement, financial management, but there was nothing that really kind of stood out, which makes it quite difficult for people who want to move the career in this direction. So I'm just interested to hear what you think are the most important skills within a SIAM environment. Were these results surprising to you as well?
I'm not sure, because all the results that were in there did make sense. So if you would have asked me or anyone, I guess, to list 10 skills, that were important without prioritizing them. I would probably have come up with at least 8 of those. So the fact that there are these many skills, but it is a broad area that you try to cover, because you try to make different providers work together over a whole set of different processes. And some of these developers, some of these providers may develop software, so DevOps might be something that is really important with that specific provider. But others may just be offering you infrastructure, and the ITIL processes, etc., are extremely important with this one. So I guess I didn't expect it, but I guess it does make sense because it's such a broad area of expertise.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It is not something that you can tie to 1 or 2 skills. You actually need to understand the whole chain of service delivery. So you should actually know the end-to-end and understand what is happening, because something can go wrong in the process with one of the suppliers, and then you have to understand the impact. So I think you need also an understanding of the business. You need really to understand what are you doing. It's not only IT. It's really the business, understanding your business, because usually you're serving customers or clients or whatever, and you really need to understand if something goes wrong, what is the impact. To me, it's very much tied also to the the service management culture in general. What are we providing as services? What does this mean? And if something goes wrong, where do I need to look at, and who will be impacted? It's very broad. It's not something you can learn, I think, just by reading a book and say, hey, now I know exactly how SIAM works and I'm a SIAM manager or whatever. I don't think so. I think you need a lot of expertise and a lot of experience, and you really need to understand what you're doing. The whole
and I guess in general, you do this with a team, right? You're not indeed the SIAM manager who needs to take care of every single thing for all these different providers and the organization. Because if it was indeed just you, you would probably need all these skills indeed. But I surely hope that you can count on some team members to give you some of these skills also.
Yeah,
absolutely. You need to work together with all your service delivery managers, because a service can be consisting out of multiple other technical or whatever services, a combination of a lot of things. And it's something that I'm seeing at the global level, because on a global level, we provide a lot of services to a lot of our internal customers. And when something goes wrong, usually you have to put a couple of people together to understand what's actually happening and how can we get this fixed. So it's not just one person that knows everything. You really have to put a lot of service delivery managers together that understand exactly what's happening.
So do you think this is something that we need to kind of introduce into the education system when people are learning about business management and when people are learning about information technology? Are there elements of SIAM that we should be teaching at school or in universities as well?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. Because the world is still going in that direction, that there's just going to be more of this. In order for us to get better every day as a society, so to say, we reach that by specializing, right? By becoming really good in smaller pieces that we are doing, which means that we have to buy other stuff from others because they're really good at that little bit. If I look at our own organization, I think we have everything that doesn't have anything to do with developing, providing and supporting our software, we've outsourced because others are way better at doing it. So why would we want to do it ourselves? And if we get more and more of that, that means that everyone is going to be involved in that. And then I think that our universities should definitely teach about this, so that people know what it is, know what to expect. And I don't think it's something completely new anyways, because sometimes I hear companies like, yeah, but then all these new people and there's a whole new division and we call it SIAM and a lot of overhead. But you have people managing relations today also. It's not that you can enter into a relation with a provider without anyone doing anything to manage that and to streamline that, etc. So I think doing that the SIAM way, so to say, is just going to make it more efficient what you are already doing and getting more value out of it without necessarily spending more money on it.
I think that is a very fair point, and that is also a nice way to wrap us up, because we have reached the end of our 30 minutes. That has really flown. I would like to say thank you to Martijn and Jean-Marie for joining us today. The white paper is available as a free download on the For.me website. So that's number4me.com. And we will put a link in the blog that we put out about this hangout as well. Our next hangout is going to be in January, and we're going to be joined by a panel to look ahead at what is coming in 2019. So that's going to include ITIL 4, Verism across the world, more SIAM, and doubtless lots of other topics as well. But for now, all that's left for me is to say thank you very much, Jean-Marie. Thank you very much to Martijn, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd.
Okay.